Hey, today we're going to be building this coffee table. It was a lot of work, so let's go ahead and get started.
So this coffee table I picked up off of Facebook Marketplace for $40. It had been sitting outside. It had a little bit of water damage, but basically I knew it was going to work perfectly because I built a fluted coffee table. Go check it out if you haven't seen that video already, but it didn't have storage. So this was a really fun thing. Here I am just getting measurements and getting a better idea of what I'm going to need for this. Take a screenshot. This is all the materials you're going to need for this project, but I'm not going to go through them in detail. So once I started calculating how many wooden dowels that I would need, I actually used half round trim. This is a lot easier to work with and it comes in 8-foot sections. I took this little multi-tool and removed this piece of trim. It was actually just a trim board, but for some reason I could not seem to get it off. So I had to use this tool to cut off some of the nails and ultimately remove it. It left a really gunky looking thing, but as you can see, we're going to cover it up, so don't even sweat it. You don't have to sand this super smoothly because we will be doing some wood glue on it. If you want to give it a light scuff, that's what I did. I would recommend it. Next, we are on to my least favorite part, which is sanding furniture. I think this is such a pain. It takes forever. But on this, I used a 120 grit sandpaper using my Ryobi orbital sander. It took a little bit of time. I'd say this is probably the second most time consuming piece of this project, but it's really important to get it completely sanded down so that you don't have any of the old stain poking through. It's really obvious. What I did for this is I used Minwax wood solid stain and I watered this down. This is a water-based stain. It's a solid stain again. So you just water it down, and then I used a paper towel to apply this to the tops and then the legs. It worked really, really well. In fact, this might be my new favorite method for staining. And I didn't go purchase this. I had this on hand from the previous coffee table, but it didn't work out for it. So I thought, why not? I'll give it a shot and see how this works for this project. Now, the very next step is to cut a piece of plywood to install. This is what your fluting is going to sit on. This isn't necessary, but I did find that it was a lot stronger, and I'm ultimately going to be flipping this table to make a little extra cash. So it's really important for this to be very stable and to feel heavy duty. So here I am cutting a piece of plywood. This is 1/4 inch with my circular saw. Once that's done, then you take and you just start to stain the same exact process, the plywood. And I did find that using the paper towel is the best way to go. A paintbrush used a little too much stain. It wasn't very good. This is a little complicated, so I'm going to do my best to explain it. There was a lip at the bottom. The bottom base was inset just a hair, and it wasn't flush with the top part of the coffee table. So because of that, I had to add a little bit of a spacer. That's what those little dowels were, the square dowels. Those are a true 1 inch, and that made the plywood sit totally flush. So then therefore the fluting would also be flush instead of caving in at the bottom. So I had to do that. I don't know if you'll have to if you find another coffee table, but it's just an extra step that I had to take. I attached it with some wood glue, and then I used my brad nailer to secure it and then clamped it so that it stays nice and tight. Once that plywood is attached, I took all of my wooden dowels, my half rounds, and just laid them on top of the plywood to get a better idea of the spacing. I did cut one section at a time with these wooden dowels because I wasn't sure if I was going to need more or if I had too many and I could return. They're kind of spendy, so it's nice to be able to have a better idea of how much materials you're going to be using. Once that's done, then you're just going to have to take and you're going to have to stain every single one. So same thing, pull up a chair, grab a little space heater for your garage, and make sure you just take your time and just go through the process on this. This is by far the most time consuming piece, but you have to do it. So I did find that the paper towel method, again, worked the best. Once that's done, I tried a couple different ways of attaching the plywood and the fluting. I tried doing it this way where I would just glue the wooden dowels directly to a piece of plywood and then attach the plywood to the side. That was okay, but actually my favorite method was to attach the plywood first and then put all the dowels there and then slowly one by one start to glue them. With these longer sides, my strategy that I thought worked the best was to do this half at a time. So lay all of the dowels out so that you can see the pattern and make sure that the spacing's correct. And then do the first half, make sure it's glued down really, really well, and then clamp it and let it dry for 15 to 30 minutes, depending on what your wood glue says. Weird little hack. I actually took this brush that I was using for trying to stain, and any of the wood glue that seeped up, I just brushed it off pretty quickly. Did a couple coats of polyacrylic, which I did not record, but here's the finished product. I am super happy with the way this turned out. It looks like something you'd find in Anthropology or one of the high-end stores. And the best part about this is it has storage. That's the coolest piece, and that was one of the things that many of you mentioned with the other fluted coffee table is how do you store things. All right, that is it for this flip. If you enjoyed this video, do me the biggest favor and like, subscribe, and comment. That's the greatest thing you can do for this channel, and it really helps me get in front of more people. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you for another flip in the future. Bye!